everyone. I am Dr. Marcus Bernard, the MANRRS National Past President. And today, I'd like to talk to you about land, liberation, and legacy as we open up our program today. What a balled up, tangled web we touch and discuss today, almost like an onion. We must peel this onion back in layers and endure the tears, the years, and even some fears. I'd like to thank Major General Gordon Granger. Who is Major Gordon Granger? I'll call him the messenger. He read General Order Number 3 on June 19th, 1865, announcing in Galveston, Texas, that all slaves were free. Mind you, this was 2 years after President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, but yes, it marked the end of chattel slavery, according to the federal government in the US. Following this, the 1866 14th Amendment and Civil Rights Act, which gave African Americans the right to own land. But in peeling this onion back, we have to deal with some hard truths. There was some suffering and trauma from discrimination, bias, and modestly, lack of opportunities for African Americans in agriculture, which definitely did not make times better. But you know, that's only one part of the narrative. And I really want to balance this equation because by 1910, we had over 14 million acres of land in the hands of about 210,000 Black people. Yes, the majority of Black people in the US were farmers up until the Great Depression, 1930s. When we think about that, that means the Black communities, the Black K through 12 schools, the Black agricultural colleges and universities, the Black business districts, Black benefit societies, Black families, and yes, the Black middle class, all sprung from Black landowners and Black farmers. During the Reconstruction era, cotton, yes, it was king, but it guaranteed a payday, and that built our communities because our people worked hard. That's the real message. We have to change the old narratives of Black people and agriculture. So I close with a legacy question. And it comes from an excerpt from Manning Marable out of the Politics of Black Land Tenure. He says the development of a strong Black land base became an ideological imperative of Black thought by the 1890s, an idea tied to liberation and freedom. This is a legacy being read and interpreted 157 years after June 19th, 1865, the day we celebrate as Juneteenth. So to the MANRRS founders, boards, national office staff, and you, how will the MANRRS legacy read on Blacks in agriculture, natural resources, and related sciences? What will it say, not just to the next generation of youth, but the next 5 generations from today to the youth and leaders about Blacks in agriculture? We carry a heavy weight on our shoulders, and I'm proud of everyone that's a part of this society. With that, I will bring on our next speaker, Ms. Jamel Lacey, the Senior Manager of PepsiCo. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much, Dr. Bernard, and to the MANRRS team. My name is Jamel Lacey, and it is my pleasure to bring you all greetings on behalf of the PepsiCo Foundation, where I am the senior manager and I lead our racial equality journey work. Just to tell you all a little bit about myself, I was born and raised in Buffalo, New York, where we have always celebrated Juneteenth. And I know there are a lot of other cities that can say the same, but it is truly amazing to witness this time in history where the rest of the country is finally catching up and catching on to the historical significance of Juneteenth. At PepsiCo, we recognize that this holiday is not just a cause for celebration, it's a stark reminder to all of us that progress doesn't occur just by standing still. It requires persistence. And so as we honor the resilience and the fortitude of Black Americans, we are doing our part as an organization to help dismantle systemic barriers of opportunity through our racial equality journey, which is PepsiCo's $500 million commitment focused on advancing Black and Brown people, businesses, and communities. I have the pleasure of leading some of those initiatives for the PepsiCo Foundation. And as a leader of that work, I am so proud to see how our commitment has led to us intentionally seeking out partnerships with leading organizations focused on uplifting Black people. I know we'll probably get into this a little bit later, but I want to take a second and applaud the MANRRS team because, for lack of a better term, we see you. We see you enough to invest in you, and that investment comes to life through a $50,000 investment from the PepsiCo Foundation to support scholarships that will award students who are pursuing careers in agriculture and to support your summer programming. You know, this investment is important to you all, but it's also extremely important to us as PepsiCo. Many people think of us as a food and beverage company. And while that's true, we do make some of the most iconic brands in the world, such as Pepsi, Quaker, Lay's, all sorts of other great things. But we are not just a beverage, oatmeal, and chip company. We are actually an agriculture company. We are a water, grain, and potato company. We source 25 crops from more than 7 million acres in 60 countries. Agriculture is crucial to our business, and the growers and the communities around the world depend on our business in order to support and sustain their lives. So given the scale and the capabilities that we have, we know that we play a critical role in leveraging our capability to achieve local impact and to help the communities where we live and we work. It is critical for us to foster the next generation of agriculture leaders, and we are super proud to do so alongside all of you all. I could talk to you all for the next hour about PepsiCo's dedication to regenerative agriculture and reducing emissions and our sustainability work and DEI within our workforce. But if I did that, I would not leave much time for anyone else to share the information that I know they want to share. So I will stop right here and just say that I'm honored to join you all this evening, and I look forward to the conversation ahead. And I will turn it back over to the MANRRS team.
Thank you, Jamel, and thank you for joining us. My name is Stefan Fitzpatrick. I am the National MANRRS President-elect. Professionally, I serve as the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Commission for Agricultural Education Excellence, and I'm also a fourth-year doctoral candidate at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, majoring in organizational leadership. Today, I will be leading our panel, where we have some amazing guests joining us today. We have Kendall Ray Johnson, who's a farmer with Agriculture Urban Farm, Jamel Lacey, the Senior Manager of PepsiCo, Dr. Charles Maggie, a professor at Florida A&M University, and we also have PJ Haney of Haney Farms. And so what we're going to do before we get started, you all are going to see two polls that will appear. The first one being, we'd like to know who's in the audience. And so if you can, please drop, if you're a student, professional, government industry, and then go ahead and complete that. And then you will also receive another poll, which will let you know, what do you hope to get out of this session today? We have some amazing guest speakers, and so we'll give you all an opportunity at the end of the session to ask the panelists questions. And so what we're going to do, without further ado, we are going to dive right in. And so I'm going to start with Mr. Haney. of Haney Farms. PJ, how you doing today, sir?
I am doing well, my brother, and I'm happy to see everybody on the call. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate this opportunity to join you today.
No problem. And so, Mr. Haney, before I get into some questions that we have for you, and I'm excited to hear from you, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and Haney Farms?
Happy to. So I'm a fifth-generation Black farmer from Virginia. My family hails from the coastal plains of the Chesapeake Bay region of Virginia, a tiny commercial fishing village called Reedville, Virginia, in the northeast corner where the Potomac River and the Chesapeake Bay meet. I'm very fortunate because my great-great-grandfather, the late Reverend Robert Haney, was the first African-American to come out of slavery and purchase 60 acres of land on September 14th, 1867. And by the grace of God, my family still owns and farms that land today, and we have expanded our operation significantly. We farm approximately 5,000 acres along the coastal plains of the Chesapeake Bay area. About 2/3 of that is double crop, where we plant winter wheat, winter canola, corn, and soybeans. I was a student while in college. I was a MANRRS member. My whole 4 years in college, I was involved in MANRRS. Returned to my family business after graduating, and had the pleasure of expanding my family farming operation down in Arkansas about 7 years ago. Down here, we're farming over 4,000 acres of wheat, soybeans, and rice. And we are happy to work with you, Jamil, and some of your colleagues in what we're doing, and with it being a minority supplier to your company. And I put a quarter to me that we can come back and talk about. We got work to do there, but I'm just happy to be here and be on this platform as a fifth-generation Black farmer. In addition to farming in 2 states, one hat that I wear proudly is I serve as chairman of the National Black Growers Council, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to improve the efficiency, productivity, and sustainability of Black row crop farmers. And we purposely segregate from other farmers because we in the commodity space, corn, soybeans, cotton, peanuts, wheat, canola, rice, we are the smallest group of all of your Black commodity growers. And we're the smallest group of all Black farmers, I should say, as only 8% of all Black farmers are full-time commodity growers. So happy to be here and serve in the capacity that I do. Stefan, I was a graduate of Virginia Tech in 1999, came back to the farm. And if you had told me at the time, PJ, if you give me $1,000 for every farmer, every Black farmer that I can name you that farms over 1,000 acres of land, outside of family members, I could not have cashed the first check. And in 2010, I had the pleasure of meeting other large acre Black row crop farmers. That meeting changed my life. And to be able to network with those other Black farmers across the country and learn and share ideas, that meeting changed my life. It opened a whole new chapter in the book of life for PJ Haney, because I now have a brotherhood, a network that I can call and say, hey, bro, what are you paying for fertilizer? I just priced the combine. They told me $750,000. Does that sound right? Because we as Black farmers in our communities, we don't know what we don't know. And we're not part of the local good old boy network. We're not part of the country club chat and chew. We're not part of the coffee shop circuit every morning. So we don't know. And oftentimes we find ourselves targets in our community. So happy to be here. I'm very passionate. And before I close, I'd like to just add one thing that Mr. Bernard said earlier. The numbers that I've been quoting, and I may be off a little bit, but in 1920, there were 1 million Black farmers in the country compared to 4 million white farmers, a 1-to-4 ratio. From my research, African Americans owned 16 million acres of land over 100 years ago. Fast forward today, there are less than 15,000 Black farmers in the country. And I say that because USDA numbers are skewed, I think, folks. When you look at your average urbanite who wants to have a nice greenhouse behind their house and go to the farmer's market on the weekends and put their big old sombrero on and say they're a farmer, that takes up a lot of people. That is 92% of all Black farmers are in the produce or cattle business. Again, only 8% are row crop full-time commodity growers. But the numbers that I learned, Stefan, is that present day, we have less than 2 million acres of land. And when we go from 16 million in 1920 to 2 million present day, by my little turn road math, that's 14 million acres of land that has been lost in the Black community. And that land just didn't vanish off the coastal plains of Virginia or California. That land oftentimes changed hands to our neighbors.
Absolutely.
And ladies and gentlemen, when we look at the difference of 16 million acres in 1920 compared to 2 million acres today, that's a 14 million acre gap. And just if you apply a land value of $4,000 an acre on 16 million acres, that's over $60 billion of wealth that has been removed from the Black agricultural community that we'll never get back. So I thank you for having me and allowing me to be on the platform, and happy to answer any questions or engage as you desire.
Absolutely. And PJ, I have to say, we might be family. My dad's side of the family is from Norfolk, Chesapeake, Virginia. And so I'm very familiar with the area. And so, with you being a 5th generation farmer, right? And, can you just share just what does tradition mean to Haney Farms, right? And, for perspective, Black farm, students that are looking to get into farming. And, I know we have a lot of non-traditional students, but, when we talk about tradition and generational wealth, what does that mean to the Haney farm?
It means a lot, because land is the one thing that the good Lord's not making any more of. And I recently received an award, and I shared with people that in the audience that there's no culture without agriculture, ladies and gentlemen. Regardless of your race, your age, your religion, your political affiliations, food is the one thing that connects us all. You could be, 2 months old, eating rice in a baby cereal formula that you're eating, or 102 years old and eating rice and slow for your diet. Food is the one thing that connects us all. And I think that's something that we need to realize. We are very fortunate to live in one of the most abundant, safe, and affordable food producing countries in the world. And that's something that a lot of people take for granted.
Absolutely.
I just want to make sure I can do my part to show young Black men and women the opportunities that agriculture has. You may not want to indulge and be a farmer, but I want to help you become a better advocate. I want you to have a better understanding of the working needs of a Black farmer and a farm in general. So when you go to work for the PepsiCo, you go to work for USDA, you go to work for professional corporations, you understand and you can advocate for those in the underserved production community. It's my job to try to grow the 6th generation on this farm. And I've got to make agriculture sexy to the next generation. I've got to make it appeasing so people want to do it. And Agriculture Day is much beyond plows, cows, and sows. I'm sorry, please go ahead.
No, you were right. No, you are absolutely correct. And I love the passion, right? And I think it's that passion, right? That story that keeps us all motivated. And so PJ, we just want to say thank you so much for joining us and just taking that time out to just join us today and just continue to be an inspiration to support and advocate for Black farmers in this space. All right. And so with that.
Well, thank you. And I would just like to say I appreciate the opportunity. I shared with Ebony, I was fortunate to be part of a documentary that John Deere put together on gaining about air property. I would like that to be shared with our community. That's something that affects us all. And lastly, Stefan, I'm hosting a big event for the National Black Growers Council on July 20th in Arkansas, one of our field days, our Model Farm Series field days. And I invite everybody on this platform to come join us to see what we're doing in row crop production to help produce the food, fiber, and fuel that the world needs. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, PJ. And so for our next guest speaker, I'm excited to introduce everyone to Georgia's youngest certified farmer. And so we are blessed to be joined by Kendall Ray Johnson. Kendall, how are you doing today, dear?
All right, say hello.
How are you doing today, Kendall? Good. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm excited to hear about agriculture. And so, Kendall, you being the youngest certified farmer in Georgia, what is the best and the worst things about being a farmer?
The best and worst things about being a farmer is you the best thing is you get to spend time with your family, and the worst thing it gets really hot out on the time.
Of course. Now, Kendall, who are some of your heroes? What was some of your inspiration behind being a farmer?
Dr. Jill from the USDA.
Okay.
That's one of her heroes.
Okay. Now, Kendall, what has been on your farm? What has been your best seller?
Collard greens and sweet potatoes.
You're talking my language. So what you're saying is if I come to Georgia, I need to come get your collard greens, huh?
Yeah.
Awesome. So Kendall, let me ask you this. You being a farmer, are you in school?
Yeah, actually I'm homeschooled.
Okay, so how do you juggle school and then running your farm?
Tell them your day to day. Like, what do you do? What did you do today?
Like, today I'll spend time on the farm, and tomorrow I'll do my homework.
So you got a nice little good balance there. Now, Kendall, the audience wants to know, how old are you?
8 years old.
8 years old, and you're a powerhouse. Now, what advice would you give young aspiring farmers?
Keep growing.
Keep growing. Kendall, that is absolutely amazing. And we also hear that you have a book called I'm Growing Places. Is that correct?
Yes.
So can you just share, why should everybody buy your book?
Because it gives kids a whole farming process.
I love it. I love it. Well, Kendall, we just wanted to say, with our theme this year being Aspire to Inspire, you are truly the definition of that. We wish you nothing but success. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, dear.
This is
Stefan, yes.
Stefan, I'm sorry.
No worries.
I know I'm going in and out, but I hope you guys can hear me. You did ask the question about what inspired her to start farming.
Absolutely.
Kendall, could you tell them who inspired you to start farming in the first place and the story behind it?
My great grandma Kate. She taught me the collard green story, which is you take a collard green from the store, chop off the top, then there you have the base. You plant that base, and you'll get a new collard green.
Well, you know what, Kendall? I just found out that my grandmother had a farm, and I was wondering where I got this farmer bug from. And so it's nice to know that was passed down to the generations to you. And so to your mom, just thank you so much for what you're doing with this young lady. And Kendall, we wish you nothing but success, okay? All right, well, thank you so much for joining us. All right, and so I don't know about you all, but I'm inspired. And so next, Jamel, we're going to bring you back to the stage because I would like to dive more into a little bit of your story, and we have some great questions for you.
Sure.
So Kendall, Jamel, why is it important for you to spearhead programs and investments focused on increasing equity in Black and Brown communities? And what have been some of your personal successes?
Sure. So I have been at PepsiCo for a little over 2 years now. And I came here specifically to do this work. So my role was created to lead the community aspect of our racial equality journey. And I would say that increasing equity is not just a quest for fairness, it's a quest for respect. And it's an acknowledgement for and respect for our historical journey and for our current day being. And that's something that's personally important to me. You know, equity is what levels the playing field by both bringing us up and sounding the alarm for the majority to look and listen and actively participate in that leveling. And that's work that I was doing before I came to corporate America. And so I feel like the investments that we make are our ability to influence and to lead. And that's work that I wanted to do at PepsiCo. I wanted to position, to be part of this movement, to position PepsiCo as an influencer and a leader so that we can show that the search for equity is a collective effort. Like there's no competition here. PepsiCo, we're not here to say we did it, you know, best and we did it and nobody else did it. We're here to say, look, we did it and we want you and you and you and you and you to do it. And that's something that just resonated with me really strongly. And so we've been successful in doing that through a variety of different initiatives. The one that comes top of mind to me is another program that I lead called the Black Restaurant Accelerator Program. It's a partnership between us and the National Urban League. And, you know, there's a lot of different restaurant accelerators. There's a lot of different organizations that were focused on supporting Black businesses, but ours was a very intentional partnership with the National Urban League to infuse capital and coaching into Black businesses. And it's been successful because one of the things that we did was we allowed National Urban League to lead the development of that program. We didn't come in as PepsiCo, even though we, you know, have a whole food service division that works with restaurants on a day-to-day basis. When we were building the program, we decided to go to National Urban League and say, hey, we have the resources, we have the desire to do it, but we know we don't have the answer. And we are not the ones that can go into Black-owned restaurants and say, this is what you need to be doing. Right. And so understanding that our role in creating equity is to take our resources and capabilities and to support the partners that can actually do the work. That, like I said, not only is important to me, but is what I think has led to a lot of our success with our programs.
And Jamel, I appreciate that. And, you know, you mentioned a very key point, and I want to ask you this. With you being a minority woman at PepsiCo, right? And, you know, we hear the word equity and we hear across the country, right? You know, that DEI is becoming a derogatory word for a lot of people, right? And so how do you stay focused, you know, with some of your programs, you know, with PepsiCo, and where have you seen, where have they been most beneficial to the community?
I think, you know, staying focused is hard. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. It's very difficult because there is a pendulum swing. You know, we saw in 2020 when the height of racial reckoning, you know, which wasn't really the height for us as Black people, because we have been experiencing this for years and years and years, but now all of a sudden the majority is paying attention and now it's the height, right? So, you know, we saw that and we saw all these commitments coming down and everybody was paying attention. And now there's this swing kind of backwards where people are kind of on to the next thing. What I love about us at PEP is that we are consistently kind of like beating the drum on that. There are other people who were brought in to do this work just like I am, and we are relentless in our personal and our professional commitment to make sure that when the pendulum doesn't swing, we don't just turn around and go to the next thing. That's why our commitment was 5 years, which is not typical in corporate America. I used to be a fundraiser before this. It was very rare that I would see any company that would commit to something for longer than 1 or 2 years. And so we are, you know, I'll kind of speak from a personal perspective, very, very committed and relentless in making sure that not only are we doing the work and it's producing results, but that our leadership and the allies that are at that leadership level are aware that not only is it working now, but it needs to continue to happen. These investments need to continue to be there. And that's a tough battle. And Absolutely. It is easy to lose focus in that because, you know, again, this search for equity and this, you know, desire to do right is an uphill journey. It is not, there are a lot of battles that are lost, but there are ones that are lost, or there are ones that are won. And so the one battle that we can win motivates you to go on to the next one and the next one and the next one. And that work continues day in and day out.
And, you said a key word that's actually my word of the year, right? And it's intentional, right? I think when we think about, how do we persevere and how do we endure, we celebrate those successes, but we still have to navigate those challenges and those obstacles, right? And I think, staying motivated and pushing through is something that it's a skill, right? I think it's something that is easily obtained, right? And I think it's important to have those support structures that make you feel psychologically safe in those environments. And so for my last question for you, Jamel, and this is for the students, that the students that may be interested in supporting your efforts or being a change maker in their community, what advice can you share with them about pathways to take?
That is a great question. In my last couple years here, I think I've seen younger and younger people who are really wanting to figure out, how do I be part of this change and this movement that I see? And I can remember being 18 and 19 years old, and I wouldn't do any of that. I was trying to figure out, how do I graduate from college and how do I, pay my student loans off and stuff. And so it's really inspiring to see a lot of folks who are younger wanting to be greater than themselves. And so I think the advice I would give is, one, don't do things alone. Don't feel like you have to change your community, change what you see by yourself. Find a collective, find community. There are other people who are just like you, who feel the same way that you do. And there is nothing wrong with collaboration. I can remember being in the nonprofit space, and there was always a fight for dollars. And we were always trying to prove that, our program was best and we need to have this attention and that attention. When you are trying to create change, there is nothing wrong with collaborating to do that. Your idea and somebody else's idea may combine to create an even bigger idea. And your resources and somebody else's resources can combine to level you all up into a space that you wouldn't reach by yourself. And so I think that would be my biggest word of advice. Do not be afraid to collaborate. Like we were saying, intentionally seek out community, seek out partnerships, and seek out support. Ask questions, because you don't know what you don't know, but you do know something that could help somebody else.
I immediately go back to that African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together.
Absolutely.
Right. And so, Jamel, I just want to say thank you so much. Again, you are also an inspiration in the work you do, and continue to be an advocate, right? An advocate for this space. And so we thank you so much for joining us. And so we are going to invite this next legend to the stage, Dr. Charles Maggie. How are you doing today, sir?
Good evening, Stefan. I'm doing well.
Doing well.
I just want to
go ahead, Dr. Maggie.
Oh, I just want to thank you for inviting me, Ebony and the MANRRS organization, inviting me to be a panelist on this webinar.
And so Dr. Maggie joins us as a professor from Florida A&M University in Agriculture and Biological Sciences. And so, Dr. Maggie, I've seen your background, right? And it seems that you've experienced so many firsts, right? And so in your background, did you experience imposter syndrome, and how did you navigate those challenges of being a Black agriculture and biological engineering major at the time that you were in school?
Okay, well, first, it's Stefan, it's pronounced McGee.
Sorry, sir.
Okay, no problem. Now, if you mean by imposter syndrome that if I felt like I didn't belong, I never felt that way. I guess the way I got through biological and agricultural engineering, when I got introduced to it and attended the University of Minnesota, I didn't realize until years later that I was naive, to be honest. Actually, I was a social experiment when I reflect back on it, because before I arrived at the University of Minnesota, I had never met an agricultural engineer, a Black one, not a white one at that time. And actually, I thought that everybody at the university in the department, that they wanted me to be successful. I didn't realize until years later, until the department head, the guy that recruited me, it told me that more than half his faculty members, they either thought I was going to fail or they wanted me to fail, because only one person had earned, only one African American had earned a degree in biological and agricultural engineering. And he had attended a predominantly white institution, and I was coming from a predominantly Black institution. I had come through a segregated system. Mississippi is my home originally. I grew up on a small subsistence farm, and believe it or not, in Jefferson Davis County, Mississippi. And you know, Jefferson Davis was the president of the Confederacy, so I don't have to say much more about that. So most of the faculty members, and this was at the University of Minnesota, just to be specific, most of the faculty members, at that time, the University of Minnesota, when they selected graduate students, all the students had to be voted on by the faculty. So some of the faculty members said that this would be a waste of money. So this person is coming from a segregated high school system. It came from a segregated college. He's in a non-engineering program. There's no way he's going to be successful in agricultural engineering at the University of Minnesota. I didn't know all of this, all I know that I was pretty good in mathematics in high school. I grew up on a subsistence farm, and I loved agriculture, but I also loved mathematics. And so I realized this was 1968 when they wrote to the Alcorn State University looking for African American that might want to pursue a master's degree in agricultural engineering. So I was the only person at that time to qualify to get in the College of Engineering at the University of Minnesota, because I had taken, Cal 1 and Cal 2 as my electives in college. During that time, it was unthinkable for an agriculture major to select Cal 1 and say Cal 2 as an elective. I saw it as a challenge. So like I said, I did not feel, if I had known I was expected to fail, I probably would have. So it's a good thing that I didn't know that. Okay. Now, what was the other part of your question?
No, I think that was it. I think that was you answered it in full.
Okay.
But with that, I have this to ask you. I don't think the audience knows that you are a founding member of MANRRS. And so, what contributions are you most proud of, and where do you see MANRRS going in the future?
Okay, my greatest contribution, I did draft the original constitution for the MANRRS organization. I served as the first national treasurer for the organization. Even during the time that I was the national treasurer for the organization, I don't know whether we still have it or not. I put in the policy, I put in the policy, I shouldn't say I put it in, convince the organization that we are, that if you're gonna have any organization that involve agriculture, the 1890 institution should be involved. Okay, now the 1890 institution, we don't have all the resources at the 1862 institution. For those that don't know, we're talking about the Morrill Act of 1862 and the Morrill Act of 1890. Okay, so we put in a policy that in order to get students from the 1890s to attend the conference, that the organization should pay for at least 2 rooms, hotel rooms for the students to attend the conference. I don't know whether we still do that or not, because we just didn't have the resources back in 1988 and 89, those years and stuff. So I'm very proud of that, the role that I played. And I served as the 3rd national president during 1991, 90 to 91. I get the years kind of mixed up. And under my administration in 91, the advisory board started under my administration. And we were also having even during the early year, after we adopted the name Minorities in Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Related Sciences, we were having a hard time financially. We were kind of struggling to have money to, finance the conference, okay? So I was a member in 1988 to 1990. I was served as the interim director of the the Agricultural Research Station at Fort Valley State University. And I convinced my colleague, the Association of 1890 Research Director, that they need to put money into the organization, you know, for us to be able to sustain it. And believe it or not, for 2 years in a row, they gave us, I believe, $10,000. That may not sound much today, but in 1988 and 89, that was a lot of money. So I was instrumental in convincing that organization that they should financially support the organization. And also, when I served as president, I was a real good friend for the late Jim Tatum. He had an administrative position for the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and he was on the advisory board. And so we were able to convince him, you know, I had a real good relationship with him. And he promised, he got NRCS to give us $100,000 for 5 years, $100,000 each year, to make the national conference sustainable. So I'm very proud. As far as where we are going in the future, I would like to see, I would love to, I think MANRRS needs to have some Native American chapters. We should expand to the Caribbeans, to the Caribbean, for that matter, even go north of the US, we could go north of the border, Canada, Mexico. So another program that I think we should have, let's face it, as far as people of color, especially African American, very few of us are coming from agricultural backgrounds, production agriculture. Mr. Haney talked about this earlier, PJ talked about this much earlier. I would love to have to see the organization have an intern program, you know, for production agriculture, because as Mr. Haney indicated, yes, we had quite a few Black farmers on the horticulture side of agriculture. Most of them are part-time farmers and stuff, and we have a lot of urban, you know, some are getting into urban agriculture. But as far as row crops, you know, corn, wheat, soybean, and cotton, and all of that, granola, we don't have, very few Black Americans have had that experience. So we could have some type of internship program where they can actually work with an organization like the Black Growers Council, where they can actually do an internship and be paid and pay for it. And be paid. And I'm guessing though, we will probably be very receptive to Mr. Haney's organization. So those are just some of the things that I think that that I think we need to think about in the future. But certainly we want to expand more so internationally and get more Native Americans involved in the organization as well.
Absolutely. And I have one more question for you, Dr. Maggie. You know, in the bio that you gave, you mentioned despite all of your success and your greatest accomplishments, one of your greatest accomplishments was the ability to mentor students. You know, when you engage in mentoring relationships, you know, what expectations, if any, do you have for those students who would like to work from you and just kind of learn from you?
Well, my expectation is my main expectation, I want you to live up to your potential. Okay. I want you to be able to carry the torch for folks like me and other members out the organization. But I tell my students all the time, whatever you achieve in life, I'm gonna take part of the credit for it. So that's the satisfaction that I get out of it. I mean, if you think about it, as far as being a mentor, if you look back through history, you got what? Plato, you got Aristotle, and you got, what is it? I mean, I'm sorry, you got Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. You cannot find any papers that were written by Socrates. Okay? He's famous because he mentored Aristotle and Plato. So if I want my legacy in academia, I'm gonna mentor students that's gonna become great. Now, at least I think they'll become great because again, I'm gonna take some of the credit for it. And as we said, it's absolutely nothing they can do about it.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Dr. Maggie, I just wanted to first say, just thank you so much just for being here. You know, I've heard many great things about you, right? But just to have the opportunity to speak with you directly is definitely an honor, especially someone who is in that role of, you know, potentially becoming the MANRRS president next year. And so just thank you for joining us today. And definitely.
I just want to say one last thing, what Mr. Haney also said, the importance of land. We have all heard that old adage about, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, you teach him how to fish for the rest of his life. But I'm here to tell you, if you don't own the lake, it doesn't matter how good your fishing skills are, you're gonna still go to bed hungry. And we are becoming a landless people. We have gone from about in 1920 we had about over 15 million acres of land. Today we have fewer than 2 million acres of land. And so we got to, every race should have the ability to feed itself. That is the bottom line. The MANRRS is the premier organization as far as diversity and so forth. Every year we honor, we talk about Black History Month, and we highlight George Washington Carver as a great scientist, which he was a great scientist. And most folks think, that he made peanut butter. Well, actually, he didn't really invent peanut butter, but he did a lot of research on peanut butter. But my audience that's out here today, I doubt there's no one participating in this webinar can name one Black peanut butter scientist. And for more than 80 years, we've been talking about George Washington Carver. So we have fallen short in encouraging African American to follow in the footsteps of George Washington Carver. I go out and try to recruit students all the time, and as Mr. Haney also indicate, most African Americans, especially that came from the South or in the South, the North too, they still think in agriculture is cow, plows, and sows, as Mr. Haney said earlier. Now, think about this. If we were to become a separate Black nation, it would be a nation of about 45 million Black people, okay? We would be the fourth largest Black country, the fourth or fifth largest Black country in the world. And just think about just what I said. We probably wouldn't have not one Black scientist that could make peanut butter, okay? Not one Black scientist. And I like to say what that means is that we would have 45 million Black folks and we couldn't eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Wow. When you think about it, that's the way I look at it.
Wow.
So I know we're pressed for time, so I stop just in case someone may have a question for me.
No, I think that perspective, it puts it home for us, right? And I think that's when we need to be intentional and proactive, when it comes to these different initiatives. And so I want to say thank you to all of our panelists. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and open it up to the chat. And our panelists are welcome to answer in no particular order. But we do have one question that said, what are some ways that you can share the vision to keep DEI at the forefront without being in a managerial role or having positive influence? So what are some ways that you can share the vision to keep DEI at the forefront if you're not in a managerial role?
Well, one thing I do, I did it at FAMU. We had at least I started a TV program at FAMU called Land Grant Today. And the purpose of that program would try to educate the students, the faculty, and the administrators what it means to be an 1890 land grant university. Because a lot of our students graduate, the majority of them, they don't have the foggiest idea when we say FAMU is an 1890 land grant university. And it's probably the same thing that those that attend 1862 university. They don't understand the value of agriculture, not only to the university, but just to the nation, the land grant system. The reason why, you see, in any country that you live in, there are two things you must achieve. You must be able to feed your people and you must be able to educate them. And that is what the land grant system did for the United States of America.
Stefan, I'd like to add to that. The one thing I think is, as Dr. McGee has said, is we have to make it mandatory. Everybody talks DEI, ESG, just, cowboy up. I mean, let's be real. Everybody has these goals, but they say they can't make them. My family is excited because we're launching a brand, Haney Family Foods. And the crops that we grow, we want to come from our fields to your forks. Look at the 1890 community, the HBCU community. Each one of these HBCUs is feeding students in cafeterias every day. How many Black suppliers are feeding our own children at the HBCU community? We have enough money and enough horsepower and enough corporate sponsorship to make something like that happen, but we haven't been done yet. And I think that's a start. And each one of these corporations, we're fortunate for companies like PepsiCo, and there's so many others, but everybody needs to make sure they look up through these glass ceilings in these corporations, organizations, and say, where are the Black folks at? Because you only lead by example. And if your company comes out and you say you're going to spend a bunch of money and you don't do it, you need to be held accountable for it. Just like the federal government. The federal government sets aside so much money a year, we need to do it in the private sector, and especially in the Black community. These Black colleges ask for us to send our kids to them. I got 2 at HBCUs right now. But when I go to knock on the door and say, hey, I want to supply my products to your cafeteria, I can't even get a return phone call. But yet they want that check for tuition. So we gotta check our own selves, to be honest, folks. And I'm just keeping it real. We got to check our own selves. If we, as Dr. McGee says, as a people, if we can't feed ourselves, you know, it took the previous generations to acquire 60 acres of land. If I can't acquire 600, I'm not worth the salt of the earth. So, and we got to make sure we teach our kids the importance of land ownership and how we feed ourselves, because we need to build something sustainable, not just growing food, but value added, processing, putting food on the table. We as Black folk grow peanuts, we grow cotton, we grow corn, but we do not exist in the value added from when it leaves the farm. And out of every farmer, out of every dollar spent on food, the farmer only gets 18 cents out of every dollar spent. The middleman and the retail sector get all that profit. We need to create a vertically integrated platform for Black folk, because guess what? We eat every day, folks. We eat every day. Thank you.
Mr. Haney, may I say something? I'm so delighted to hear what you said about Haney's Foods and stuff. Oh, Mr. Haney, you and I need to talk. I would love to see a Carver peanut butter on the market. Okay, we need to talk. All right.
I think I just want to share something just from a corporate perspective. One of the things that I learned being kind of like a new kid in corporate America is the power of influence and the power of champions, right? And so when you're new and you have all these different ideas and there's all these different kind of voices at the table and stuff like that, it is very hard to break through that noise. And so the people who are successful at it, the people who have ideas and who are able to get those ideas to bubble to the top, are the folks who are able to identify the champions and then prove to that champion why that idea is beneficial in the language that that champion speaks. So for example, for PepsiCo, our focus a lot is make, move, and sell. We make products, we move products across the world, and then we sell them. So if we have a DEI initiative, or if we are trying to expand supplier diversity, how is that beneficial to what the core of PepsiCo is? Because the core is not changing, right? Like, let's be very transparent. The core of corporate America, the core of business is not changing. However, if you can make a business case for why your initiative helps support the core and find a champion that could articulate that, that's when it's been successful. And I've had to practice that and learn that. And the only way I know it works is because I've seen people do it. And there's a science and an art to it, but it works. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much, Jamel. Go ahead, Ms. Johnson.
So Ms. Kendall has left the chat, but I'm going to speak. I want to say thank you to Mr. McGee, Mr. PJ Haney, Ms. Jamel. That is so awesome to hear. That's one of the things that we are working with Kendall. And we tell our USDA, our organizations here, I understand that collegiate level is important, but if you don't start them at the 5 and the 6-year-old understanding what is agriculture and how it affects life, then we've missed the boat. And so for Kendall, the thing that she told us she wanted to do was to meet new people, make new things, and inspire other kids. And that's where we want to take you guys concepts and understanding of what it is, because we don't know. I'm telling you straight up, I never farmed ever. You know, this came from the horse's mouth of a child, and we are parents wanting to make the dream happen. But we do understand that it takes a village, and we are appreciative of you guys. And I'm looking at you guys as the village. So don't shut me out when I come reaching out, because she wants to learn and she's excited about learning, so that she can share her perspective to other kids that are just like her, who have no idea that everything is agriculture, from the rooter to the tutor. You know what I'm saying? When we talk about hair product, that is what it is. I mean, she took a beat, we did Nickelodeon, and it was so crazy because she pulled the beat, she tapped it on her thigh, y'all, she country. She tapped it on her thigh, she ate it. She realized that the beat made a red stain. The crazy thing is, she said, oh, that's a lipstick. And everybody just flipped out because they didn't realize that, hey, that could possibly work. You know, so exploring in that sector with youth allows you to come up with those value-added products. There are grants and programs and things out there for them, but we have to teach them about it first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, to your point, before I turn this over to Darius to give some closing remarks, and before I thank our panelists, I think, Ms. Johnson, the key thing that you said is just kind of, when that interest is presented, how do we nurture and foster that, right? And how do we enable them to and empower them, right? Because I want to make sure that we get this question asked for the group. You know, we have a young man, Matthew, who's in Massachusetts, and he's launching a MANRRS chapter. And so from the group, you know, from Mr. Haney, McGee, Ms. Johnson, or Jamel, you know, what advice would you give to someone looking to bring and engage students in these agricultural spaces?
You know, I always encourage these corporations that bring in college students from HBCUs to start them in agriculture. One mistake that they oftentimes make, and a misstep, is they take kids from the South, from HBCUs, and these ag and fertilizer and seed companies want to drop these kids off in lily white North Dakota and think that they are going to survive in an environment that they can't relate to. Start these kids in the South. Start them in areas where they have people that look like them. They can come over to a farm and sit on the tailgate and ask, you know, a farmer, why do you do this? Or it'll help sharpen their skills as an employee within those respective organizations. And I think we have to go back to where it all starts from. You know, I support everybody. Urban farmers, commodity growers, whatever you grow. There are too many people going to bed hungry at night for me to complain about how you grow the way you grow it. Keep doing what you're doing. But when we look at how we start off and where it all comes from, we got to take them back to the land. And the areas up north have smaller concentrations of land than the South. So you got to go south, you got to learn the different crops, and then figure out how you can move that to a northern platform or wherever you exist to make it work. But it all starts on a farm. And the more often we get youth to agriculture, big 200-300 acre field in the South, and let them hop on a tractor, see the touchscreen computers. My tractors are driving themselves down the field, and Dr. McGee knows there's more engineering in that piece of equipment than anything else you can put your hands on. The GPS, you know, farming touches every aspect of life. If you want to be a chemist, you can do research in the lab to determine the next herbicides and insecticides that farmers are going to use. If you want to be in accounting, if you want to be in marketing, you know, whatever your desire or your career, agriculture touches it all. Food, fiber, fuel. And that's one thing that I want to make sure that our community knows, that we don't have to leave rural America to go seek employment and elsewhere where there are opportunities right here for it. Unfortunately, as an employer, I use an H-2A labor program. I've got 10 white males from South Africa on my farm driving tractors and combines right now. I would love to employ those resources in that economic, every Friday, those paychecks, deploy them back into the rural communities where my farms are. But young men and women that look like me don't want to get involved in it. And one of the biggest aspects is they've never been exposed. as I said earlier, we think farming is hard work and it's hot. You can sit in an air-conditioned tractor and listen to music all day long with your sunglasses on if everything works out. But if you don't know, as Ms. Jamil says, we don't know what we don't know. So I encourage you to get those kids involved. The National Black Growers Council is helping with our apprenticeship program for these opportunities, and we look forward to continue these conversations. And I applaud MANRRS for having the courage to step up and have these real talks and let people in our communities know what we need to do to make our communities better. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Heine, that's what I meant about the internship program, just what you were talking about. You're absolutely right. They would understand better how all this AI and all this and biological and ag engineering, how it's applied in the real world. And the other thing I want to say, Mr. Heine, as far as your white peers and colleagues, well, I should say colleagues, I'm sure you participating in a checkoff program. And that money, I don't know if any of the money going to the 1890s. So we have to call them out. And the private companies, we got to call them out. They got the checkoff program. Every bushel of soybean, wheat, corn, that's a lot of money, but it does not get down to the historical Black land Grant University. The only thing after 250 years of slavery, the only tangible things that we got was the right to teach agriculture at 18 historical Black schools. That's all. If you think about it, if you study history, that's all we got. Okay. And
Right.
even with the Moral Act, see, to be honest, the 1890 institution, we call a land grant university. That's a misnomer. We did not, with the exception of one school, they did not grant any land to these universities, to these historical Black universities, not a financial equivalent. Each of the white schools got a minimum of 90,000 acres of land to sell the land, and they can invest the proceeds in whatever they wanted to. They could start a new college, or they could just use it to make their college better. That did not happen in the case of the 1890 land grant universities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I wanted to first say just thank you to all of our panelists for participating today. Very insightful and inspiring information. I'm just grateful to be able to moderate this panel. And I'm going to turn it over to our national president, Darius Burnett, Dr. Darius Burnett, to just provide some closing remarks on behalf of the society.
Thank you, Stefan. And I wanted to say thank you to all of the panelists, each and every one of you, for providing your personal stories and your personal insights to this webinar. I think it was a great way to kick off our DEI series as we delve deep into this concept and this reality that we're living in. One of the things a couple of things I wanted to touch on. First of all, Ms. Kendall Ray, I think she is a rock star in terms of, I think she has made a name for herself in the MANRRS organization, and she's doing her thing in terms of growing and the overall growth that has taken place on her farm. But I think she's growing the future and is really setting a model for what there is to come. I appreciate our founding member, Dr. McGee, for participating and providing his comments. I also some of the accomplishments that he made as a member of the executive committee. Some of those things still stand today, so we still do offer at least one room for the chapters of excellence that meet those requirements. So we're still doing our due diligence and are doing other things to encourage sponsorships and travel for those 1890s and other students that are under-resourced and can't necessarily get to our conference. So MANRRS is making those efforts and really being diligent about that. Mr. PJ Haney, you're speaking our language in terms of land ownership. MANRRS is actively at this point searching for a permanent home, a national office. And as part of that vision, we actually, and speaking to Dr. McGee's apprenticeship vision, MANRRS wants to take control, the autonomy over a plot of land and use that land as a training facility for our MANRRS members. And that starts with our pre-collegiate initiatives up to our collegiate and then through to our professional initiative. So in every case, allowing us to take ownership and take autonomy over training our students, training our membership, having that land having those tractors so that they can work on. I'm a meat scientist and muscle biologist by training, so I work with a lot of beef and cow and goat producers and whatnot in terms of value added to those products. So instead of just putting them on a trailer and sending them off and getting middleman, retaining ownership, processing those animals, getting the maximum value, or at least selling them directly to the big man as opposed to getting middlemen. So I think there's a lot of what our vision in terms of MANRRS in a lot of the thoughts that you all have shared today. PepsiCo, we're happy to have you all on board and everything, all the efforts that you all are providing as well. So certainly, as we work on our search for a national office and for those plots of land to serve as our training facility, we will want to include you all in the fold. Any knowledge that you have that can help us to pursue that, whether that's through public-private partnerships and whatnot. MANRRS wants to, again, take hold of that and take hold of our future, because we do believe that as fewer and fewer of us own land, fewer and fewer of us come from farm or agricultural backgrounds. And so we're losing that in terms of that historical knowledge, and certainly want to gain that again. So we want you to join us for our next couple of webinars on July 24th and August 21st. We're going to delve deep again into psychological safety and trust in this agricultural space, as well as when diversity had become a dirty word, because it seems to be a dirty word in this space. I do want to make sure that you all do know that today is actually the beginning of our 2023 Giving campaign, as part of our efforts to seek our national office and other programmatic efforts. We're trying to raise $38,000 in a grassroots campaign this year. And so to donate to that campaign, please, I encourage everybody to take a screenshot, QR code, whatever that is, whether you're giving $3.80, $38, $380, or want to give the whole $38,000, we'll take that too. But I'm certainly trying to meet that goal so that we can continue to do what we do as MANRRS. And so with that, I'll turn it over to our COO, Ms. Ebony Weber, to provide any last remarks.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are no remarks from the COO.
Thank you all. Stefan.
All right. Well, I have nothing else. Again, thank you all for joining us today. We hope